All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And good evening, one and all, and welcome to the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, and the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network from our studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us now on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email, my email address is very simple, xzone@classic1220.ca. Speaking about news, you notice how I kind of slid that in, right? The current edition, the April 2024 edition of the X Chronicles is now available online. All you need to do is go to www.xchronicles.net. Follow the links and you'll be able to read it with our compliments, 100% online, 92 pages in full color. And that's all with our compliments and the compliments of our advertisers and Relmar McConnell Media Company. Once again, that web address is www.xchronicles.net. That's XCHRONICLES.net. My guest this hour is one of the hosts of a show on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka. She is the host of Mission Evolution, and her website is www.missionevolution.org. And Gwilda, welcome back to the X Zone. Always great talking to you. How are you?
I'm doing well, Rob. It's wonderful talking to you in the X Zone Nation.
Yeah, Gwilda, this is a big event coming up here in Niagara region of Ontario with the Eclipse this coming Monday. People from all over Canada and the United States are actually coming here because apparently it's one of the best places to see the total eclipse. And we're expecting over 1 million new people, visitors, tourists, skywatchers here in Niagara. And like I've been saying for the last couple of days, please, if you're coming to Niagara, the region is under a state of emergency because of all the people that are coming here. A lot of the EMS, police, fire, and other officials will be out doing their very best to keep everyone safe and sound. So please be considerate. There's going to be traffic jams. We all know that. So please be patient. Besides, there's a lot of great things to do, see, and hear while you're here visiting us, and Niagara welcomes everyone. As a shaman, how do shamans see the eclipses? And what is the difference in the types of eclipses? For example, there's a lunar eclipse and there's a solar eclipse. And how do they differentiate between what they mean in the world of a shaman?
Well, scientifically speaking, a lunar eclipse is when the Earth is positioned between the sun and the moon, and it casts a shadow on the moon. A solar eclipse is when the moon is positioned between the sun and the Earth, and it casts a shadow on the Earth, which is the route of it is going to go right across you. It's going to go right across the United States here too. And it, interestingly enough, it goes from west to east, even though the Earth turns the other way. I can't wrap my head around all that stuff. But yeah, the shamanic meaning behind them, there's a lot of similarities in different cultures and how they view them. Both of them are related to pretty much across the board destruction and rebirth.
Wow.
With the lunar eclipse being more on the destruction side and the solar eclipse focusing a little more on rebirth.
I was speaking to a fellow broadcaster earlier today, as a matter of fact, and he said he's putting everything on hold until April the 9th after the eclipse, because he says, frankly, Rob, I don't know what the heck is going to happen. And I'm saying to him, wake up, little Susie. You know, we're not in Oz anymore. And he says, Rob, I'm telling you, I've got a bad feeling about it. The schools are closed here in Niagara. And I'm trying to figure out, why are they closed? What are we teaching our children? To fear? We should teach them responsibility. And which brings another point to the table, is that a lot of these sunglasses that children are being given by their parents, and God bless you parents for trying to protect your children, I'm all for it, may not be the proper type. And even with the professional sunglasses, doctors are saying that if you look at the main part of the eclipse for more than 3 minutes, you can suffer serious eye damage.
Is that even with glasses?
Now, I don't know about the glasses, but I do know about these, they're calling them eclipse glasses, that aren't, you buy them online or you buy them at your local dollar store. So, it's really strange, and I think that there should have been a lot more thought into the marketing and preparation of the sunglasses itself to make sure that they do not cause any harm. So mom and dad, please, I just hope that you've got the right glasses for your children. As what I am going to be doing, it's very simple. I am going to be sitting either here in the studio or in my office or at home watching it on TV.
That'll protect your eyes.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. But I think that closing down schools and all this negativity, it's a mix of wonder and negativity. A once-in-a-lifetime event, but it can be dangerous to your health, So I don't know which way the coin is going to fall on this one. I just hope and pray that everything works out right, and that people coming to Niagara, as well as going to the other spots where there's going to be an influx of tourism and spectators, that they all expect long traffic delays going and coming. Here in Niagara, some of the hotels have been booked for over a year just for this event.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of negative connotations throughout the ages towards eclipses, and one of the things that's so ironic is you're not supposed to travel on the eclipse. It's a bad omen to travel. Well, that's going to be great, right? Everybody's out there traveling.
Exactly, and I don't see what the big thing is, to be honest with you, Gwilda. Am I naive, or have I been on this planet so long that something that is a once-in-a-life event, it doesn't spark an interest in me?
Well, it does have its impact energetically and psychically,
Right.
the group psyche that's been there for ages. Something about seeing our sun disappear is very scary for the primitive people, and that's really kind of hung over.
Yeah, well, for one thing, I've got my roll of tinfoil ready, so that'll take care of that. And when my son disappears, he usually comes back home in 2 or 3 days.
Rob.
Oh, sorry. I just really think that the eclipse is being used as a gimmick, a way to get people to spend money, a way to get people to come and do, and it's a mecca for tourism in certain areas. And I think that this is just a little bit too much, but that's me.
Well, they've done that with everything, haven't they?
Yeah.
All the holidays, everything.
Yeah, I remember as a kid watching Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. He came down the ladder, said his little speech, and I said, okay, that's it. I'm going outside to play. No. You see it once, you see it all. Just, I've got to tell you something. It's just like people who go to places like the Grand Canyon or Mount Everest, Mount Fuji, the Reversing Falls in St. John, New Brunswick, the Niagara Falls here in Niagara. You look at it for about 20 minutes and you say, okay, that's it, let's go. Well, that's just me, you know. Is it because I've got a short attention span, or is it because, all right, you see it, ta-da, move on.
Well, you do tend to get bored easily.
Yeah, Laura won't let me multitask when we're out on holiday. You know.
She tries to keep you on one thing, does she?
Yeah, I'm not even allowed to bring a laptop or my iPad.
Got to close down all electronics and have a good time, huh?
Yeah. Thank God for hotels and motels that you can rent a computer from. So, why is it such a negative connotation? You know, is it just that it happened in the early times of history and the people who created all this negativity did not have an idea of what was really going on? Or is there much more sinister things happening behind the scenes?
Well, it's a real mixed bag. Of course, it was terrifying for primitive people to see the sun disappear, or the moon,
Right.
and not understand what was going on. And they made all sorts of myths and legends about, the Chinese thought a dragon was eating the sun or the moon. Or then there's the Native Americans said, a wolf was eating it or a bear was eating it. It all had to do with destruction, and that humans had to do something to save it. Okay, so there was a lot of ceremony and concern that if we don't do the ceremony right, the sun will never come back and it's not going to be good. But energetically speaking and, shamanically speaking, it does have a major impact. I mean, the impact that the heavens have on us is, used for the astrologers.
Right.
And what the eclipses do is they really intensify everything, and they also really intensify beginnings and endings.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. And so that also is kind of brought, because it intensifies things, then it starts making people really nervous.
You and I have to take our first break for this edition of the X-Zone, so please stand by, Gwilda. Exonation, Gwilda Wiyaka is our special guest. She is the host of Mission Evolution, and that is on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, and you can listen to all her archives at www.missionevolution.org, or go to xzbn.net, find Gwilda's show, click on it, and she has so many wonderful episodes that you can listen to and learn a lot as well. So we'll be back on the other side of this short break as the X-Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario.
Here comes the sun, here comes the sun. I say it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, and you're listening to us on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, and we're coming to you from on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. One of my guests this week brought a very important point up when it comes to how we should perceive the eclipse, Gwilda, and that was, just imagine it as if there was a nuclear war, and the sun is blocked out due to the damage that a nuclear blast would cause, including the white snow after the blast, and how devastating the world would be if the sun was blocked out. And I thought, wow, that's heavy.
Yeah, I think there is a primal fear in us
Mm-hmm.
about that because we sure rely on it. It's
Yes, we do. And we were talking about ceremonies. We were just starting to talk about ceremonies. And what kind of ceremonies would a shaman do during an eclipse or before the eclipse? Is it a preventative ceremony?
Traditionally they were to help, kill the dragon. If you
Mm-hmm.
were, the Chinese shaman would try to battle the dragon that's supposedly eating the sun, or moon, and or chase off the bear in the Native American traditions. That's what the ceremonies were built around back then. But
Mm-hmm.
today, and increasingly over the ages, we've used ceremonies to cooperate with the energies that are present during the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse. And so to intentionally decide what we want to support the death of, things that aren't working in our lives anymore, okay, or a position, or say we're getting of a particular age, we want to let go of being a parent and embrace being an elder, that sort of thing. And then as the sun comes back out, we do ceremony around what we want to build, what we want to grow next, what we want to birth, and those can be very powerful.
All right. Now, when you're doing the ceremony, the shamanic ceremony, who do you do the ceremony to? Do you do it to the sun? Do you do it to a specific deity? Do you do it to the moon? Do you do it to Mother Earth?
Well, kind of all the above and yet none, because it's doing a ceremony doesn't necessarily mean praying to a deity, but rather aligning with and cooperating with the currents that are running, which of course would be stellar and earth-based and aligned with those. So it's a stellar and earth-based practice.
Could you give us an example of a ceremony that would be held by, let's say, the members of the First Nations, whatever tribe they're with?
They vary quite a bit, but a lot of them involve lighting a fire, okay, and to bring the light, to hold the light while the sun disappears. A lot of drumming and chanting to bring the light back. And they usually were focused, of course, by the medicine people, and then they had hidden things that they would be doing as well. But the common person would be focusing on bringing that sun back, bringing back the rebirth, and giving gratitude for all that the sun does.
That's rather interesting. Would it be the same ceremony for the lunar eclipse or the same ceremony for the solar eclipse, or does each eclipse have its own ceremony?
Each one would have its own, and even varying depending on when they fall. Okay, so like we get quite a few a year. It's kind of surprising. We get a total eclipse takes place every 18 months or so, but the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse would have different ceremonies, and the ceremonies would differ based on what moon it was. In other words, there's the harvest moon, there's the snow moon. Okay, so that would be the season or the months. It would vary on that, and today it varies for our people based on what's your actual astrological sign, and how does that play in there? Because we have ceremonies we do as individuals, and we have ceremonies that we do as a collective. And so the eclipses have an impact on both. They have a different impact on the individual, but similar theme, same theme running through it,
Right.
as it does on the collective.
So, how does the eclipse affect the astrological charts?
And like I said, each depending on where you fall in your chart. So you take and I'm not an astrologer, so forgive me here, but so say for instance, the one we have coming up, the supermoon, is going to be on a supermoon in Aries. April 8th is on a supermoon in Aries. So the moon is going to be as closest to the earth as it ever is, and it's going to be in the sign of Aries. And so how Aries plays out in your chart and how the moon plays out in your chart is going to be affected. So those areas of your life are going to be going into eclipse. They're going to be undergoing a major transformation.
Oh, that's just great to hear.
Oh boy, more processing needed, right?
Yeah. I wonder what it was like the first time that men or women ever saw an eclipse. What do you think it would be like?
Probably pretty terrifying, because they based we were much more earth and stellar based
Mm-hmm.
when we didn't have all the technology and didn't live in houses, and there was a lot to be said for that. So we were very aware of where the sun was in the sky. That was the way that we told. That's the way we told time. That
Right.
was the way we told the seasons. Okay, and to have it suddenly disappear. And it's eerie. If you've been in one of them, and I know you have, it's really kind of eerie. The shadows change, they turn double sometimes. It gets cold, and it almost feels like everything is standing still for a little bit. And that would be very terrifying if you didn't know what was going on.
I would imagine it would. I wonder how the solar eclipse affects the animals and the birds.
Yeah, they do act different. They really do. The chickens will roost. They'll all go into their little hut and roost when the sun disappears. So yeah, they do. They know it's there.
Would it affect the migratory birds and their migration paths? Because this would be a time when the birds are flying back north after being down south for the winter.
I don't think it affects something that broad, because
Okay.
it's I want to say a temporary happening, but at the same time, your astrologers will tell you that the impact of the eclipse is like, a couple weeks before and clear up to several months after. We still feel the influence of it. So I'm sure the animals feel the influence. I mean, my cat's been running around with her tail fuzzed already. I don't know if it's definitely related to that, but it's kind of strange, and she'll get worse probably. She's very sensitive to it, and our animals are. So it's not just happening right at the time, but the influence of it starts early and stays for quite a while.
Now, do you see a difference? You're up in the Colorado high desert. Do you see a difference in the animals that you see on a frequent basis when it comes near a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse?
Yes, I sure do. I
And
sure do.
what kind of difference do you see?
Well, it's interesting because the solar eclipse only happens on a new moon, and the lunar eclipse only happens on a full moon. And so the lunar eclipse is where I've really seen the difference when I'd be out, particularly in hunting season when the elk are bugling and this and that. They would be out grazing more, because they'll go out, particularly in hunting season when they're pressured, they'll go out and graze under a full moon because they can see. And when an eclipse happens, I happened to be out there one time to watch it. They get doggone nervous and try to go bed down and try to disappear, because all of a sudden there's no light to graze
Yeah.
by.
I guess it would be a big change and a big wondering what's going on when it comes to the animal kingdom, that they're just not used to this happening. And I don't believe that a lunar eclipse would have a different effect on them. Mind you, I wonder if a lunar eclipse actually affects the tidal heights and the intensity of tides around the world.
Now that's beyond my pay grade. I
Yeah.
really don't know, but it's a good thought, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I thought so.
Yeah.
So how do you prepare for a total solar eclipse in your part of the world, up in the high desert of Colorado?
Well, I'm going to go out and watch it. We're not going to get a full view of it here, but you definitely get the shadows change, and a lot of the light goes away. So we are affected by it. And as a shamanic practitioner, I prepare by doing a lot of introspection, a lot of journaling about my personal life and how that the death and rebirth can apply to my life and be supported by my intention. And then, of course, I'm also teaching my students and clients how they can use it to their advantage.
How can we use the solar eclipse to our advantage?
Well, the solar eclipse, like I said, it's both death and rebirth,
Yeah.
but it leans more towards the rebirth.
Okay.
And so really focusing on what we would like to create next in our life. what we would like to transmute in our life.
So it's like it's like New Year's Eve where you can have a brand new start.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
love it.
In some area.
I wonder what the ancient Incans thought about it, or the Mayans, because they were
Let's
great
see.
astrologers.
Yeah. Oh, they were
Yeah.
too. Let me see. I think I have something on that here, but I don't want to quote myself wrong. Chinese, Lakota, Greeks. But I thought I had something about the Mayans.
Why don't we do this? I'll take us to the next commercial break, and
Okay.
during that time you can.
I can
It'll
find
give you
it,
some
yeah.
time to find it. Exo Nation, our guest this hour is Gwilda Wiyaka. She is a shaman. She is an author. She is a musician. She is a teacher. And she's a friend. Her website is www.missionevolution.org. And she also has all her courses, her books, and all the great work she does available at www.findyourpathhome.com. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. And this is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. What I'd like you to do, Exo Nation, is before the eclipse or after the eclipse, send me an email. Tell me what the eclipse means to you. And I'm talking about the solar eclipse that happens on Monday, April the 8th, right here throughout Niagara, across Ontario, across Canada, and around the world. Gwilda and I will be back on the other side as we continue here in the X Zone on the X Zone Broadcast Network, coming to you from our studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220. And where else you might say? Well, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Sunshine came softly through my window today. Could have tripped out easy, but I've changed my way. It'll take time, I know it, but in a while you're gonna be mine, I know it. We'll do it in style. 'Cause I made my mind up, you're going to be mine. I'll tell you right now.
Welcome back. This is the X Zone. That was Donovan singing Sunshine Superman. And this hour is all about the eclipses. Joining me is the host of Mission Evolution on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Gwilda Wiyaka. She is a shaman. She is an author. She is a teacher. And she is very knowledgeable when it comes to anything shamanic. Visit her websites. Her radio show website is no, that's mine. Haha. Her radio show is missionevolution.org, as well as findyourpathhome.com. All right, Gwilda, what did the Mayans say about the eclipses, if anything?
Well, there was a lot more to it than this, I'm sure. But what I did find that I know is, historical, is they consider the solar eclipses to be a most feared phenomenon because they were related to various negative events. They were feared events viewed and based on the Mayan cosmovision as the struggle of the sun and the moon, day and night, or good and bad. So again, there's that polarity.
Yeah.
And they did a lot of, again, ceremony at that time so that good would win over bad and day would win over night.
So I would imagine a lot of superstitions have sprung up throughout the ages and throughout the different cultures and civilizations when it came to an astrological event such as an eclipse, either solar or lunar.
Yes, there really were. And I think that over the years, of course, the elders would tell the stories, and because they do enhance whatever's going on. If something's going on is very traumatic, it's even more traumatic. If something going on is very positive, it becomes even more positive. It enhances our intention in the world, etc. And so if that's the case, then of course it would enhance what's going on to the point that then it would go down in history and be told, in the oral traditions about the horrible things that happen on an eclipse.
How about you were saying that you also had the information on the Greeks. I'd be interested in hearing about what the Greeks thought about an eclipse.
Okay, let's see if I can find the Greeks. They were pretty interesting too.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, I've got the ancient Greeks had different spin on it. They believed that the eclipses were a sign that the gods were angry with humans and that the sun would abandon the earth. This is interesting too,
Wow.
bringing untold misery. What's interesting is the word eclipse actually comes from the Greek word meaning abandonment. So there's another thing to fear. Everybody fears abandonment because if we're left alone,
Yeah.
particularly in the old societies, that was a death sentence,
So here you are in the dark, and they didn't know how long it was going to last.
Exactly.
Now, I wonder if going back into the beginning of time, or let's go to the time of Jesus Christ, when apparently at the time of his demise on the cross, the sky darkened. And I asked this question out to a number of people on another show, and somebody actually found out that during the crucifixion of Jesus at approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when, according to theologists, he died, there was actually a solar eclipse.
Oh, you're giving me goosebumps,
Yeah.
Rob. Yeah, that's amazing.
And I wonder how many other articles throughout history are based on what we don't know or what we didn't know back then, and why these thoughts, these traditions, these beliefs actually carry through in time to where we are today.
Well, there's again, there's like this psyche, this group psyche that kind of holds those fears, and I think it's passed down genetically in our DNA. Because now we've learned more about DNA and epigenetics and this and that, and we're finding that the traumas of our ancestors is actually passed down physically in our DNA. So I think that we have a lot of backlog, a lot of history there that we may or may not be aware of. I know I've heard some people say, oh, when I'm in a solar eclipse and the sun goes away, I mean, I know what's going on, it's okay, but I just get really anxious. So there's a lot to that beyond what we understand, I think.
Exo Nation, our guest is Gwilda Wiyaka. Her website, missionevolution.org. And if you'd like to find out about the courses that Gwilda gives, the books she's written, the CDs she's published, visit her at findyourpathhome.com. It seems that there's a lot of ceremonies and a lot of tribal traditions that have developed over time that are, in my opinion, are the responsibility of the shaman in many indigenous tribes and traditions. How did the shaman, or how do you even as a shaman, keep track of all the different traditions for all the different clans and all the different tribes?
Well, I can't say that I do keep track of all of them because there's so many different tribes and different clans, and everybody's just a little bit different. But through my studies of shamanism, and I've studied a lot of different forms, been trained in a lot of different forms, there's like a thread that runs through it. Like we're talking about the solar and the lunar eclipses, there's a thread of these changes, of the polarities, of the light and the dark, of the beginning and the end. And that runs through all of these traditions that we've been reading about. They all have that element in them regarding the eclipses. So keeping track of what the principles are behind all the ceremonies makes more sense to me, because then you can build living ceremony.
In today's society, are those ceremonies still necessary?
I think that ceremony is always necessary because it helps focus one's intent. It helps one be mindful and purposeful about the way they are in the world. It's a time to stop and reevaluate, what are we doing here? How are we doing it? Are we living life in gratitude and in sacredness, or are we just stumbling through? We've only got so long here.
I think we're just stumbling through, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I see a lot of stumbling going on out there, Robbie. I do.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, after being a shaman for so long and teaching shamanism, how can shamanism of yesterday help us to be better people today and tomorrow?
Again, I think it's, all the old traditions have an element that runs through them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them were based on, like we've been talking here, myths and legends that as science comes on the scene, we say, no, a wolf isn't eating the sun. The shadow of the moon is falling on it, okay? But still, the paying attention to the seasons, the earth, the stars, is treating it with reverence and aligning oneself with it has us supported by nature. And that doesn't ever get old, okay? We might have to reframe it some, but we still, if we can use ceremony and align ourselves with nature and be reverent towards the things that sustain us, we're going to be better people, and it's going to be a better life here.
What do you think would happen in today's society if there was a massive electromagnetic storm that hit this planet? An electromagnetic storm of unprecedented magnitude. And we were basically thrown back into the dark ages because we'd have no communications, we'd have no electricity. It would plunder us into chaos. Do you think that today's society, the way it is, would be able to come out of it?
Depending on how long it lasted, that's going to be the key. Because I hate to say it, but most of our people, the majority of our people, have no clue how to survive without all the conveniences that we've come to expect. Some people don't even know where the sun rises. Some kids don't even know north, south, east, and west. So all of these ancient skills that we survive by without all the help that we have now have been virtually lost and aren't taught anymore. And so I think that depending on a person's background, education, training, some are going to make it and some aren't. And it's going to be a mess if it happens.
I think we should be better prepared for the what-if factor than we are presently. Because like you said, everybody depends on modern technology. And batteries only last so long.
Oh, yeah. It's our Achilles tendon.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think of the magnitude of the disaster of losing all of our, electronic equipment, we need to be prepared. And I've made a point of preparing my students. I've made a point of preparing my children. I teach, taught, I'm getting a little old for it now, wilderness survival, how to work with nature, how to make a root cellar, all of those things, how to make a debris shelter to live in, all of those things. I've brought my children up with it. I used to teach children's programs, and I taught adults wilderness program classes so that if something like this does happen, they have something to draw on. And I think we should have that in the schools.
You see, I believe that instead of looking at nuclear devastation as a form of retaliation on a country, I think that the use of magnetic pulse weapons, where they can actually disrupt or kill the electrical requirements, just as a solar storm would do, is going to be the weapon to worry about.
Absolutely, because it's a weapon of advantage. Nothing shuts a nation down faster, but then it leaves all the buildings standing.
That's
so
right.
Once the disaster has left and all the people have died off, then the enemy just moves in, takes over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something, well, I'm sure people are looking out for it, but I think it's more of a threat than a lot of things out there.
I'm surprised to see that in the current Russian-Ukrainian conflict, that hasn't been used yet.
I know it. Yeah, it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It sure does. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. Please stand by. Exonation Gwilda Wiyaka is our special guest. www.missionevolution.org and www.findyourpathhome.com. And we'll be back as we wrap up this first hour of tonight's show as the X Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, on the X Zone Broadcast Network. And we're coming to you from our anchor station in St. Catharines, Ontario, your hometown Classic 1220. So whatever you do, don't go away. We'll be right back as we continue talking about the sun eclipses and much more.
Sunshine came softly through my window today. Could have tripped out easy, but I've changed my way. It'll take time.
It's another tequila sunrise, staring slowly across the sky. They said goodbye. He was just a hired hand, working on a dreamy plan to try.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. You're listening to us on the X Zone Broadcast Network, coming to you on and from your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. Gwilda Wiyaka is our special guest, www.missionevolution.org, and findyourpathhome.com. We've been talking about the Greeks, we talked about the Mayans, the Incans, we talked about the First Nations. Let's go back in time and talk about the Buddhists. What did they have to say about, solar eclipses?
Well, some Buddhist sources say that during a solar eclipse, again, here it is, the effects of positive and negative actions are multiplied by 10,000. Dalai Lama says that means that if you engage in various practices, it will be more helpful than usual. So once again, they're talking about, setting your intent, working with practices, working with ceremony, and the intensification of whatever's going on.
But if each negative and positive is magnified how many times?
10,000.
10,000. Doesn't that mean that the negative and positive are going to be equal again?
Cancel themselves out.
Yeah.
Point of balance, right? Yeah.
Something that I'd like to throw your way is something called comparative mythology. I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of insight into what that is.
It's a pretty fascinating concept. Comparative mythology is where we take different myths from different, like we've been doing tonight. We take different myths from different societies and different times and keep what they have in common. And then we're saying, okay, now this is probably historically sound. There's something here, okay? So there was a gentleman, Russian, and he... let me see if I can think of his name. Anyway, he was a historian, and he came up with, through comparative mythology, comparing the Egyptian scrolls with the biblical references, and he found that by moving the timeline from what the historians thought it was, 600 years, they both lined up completely.
Wow.
Totally lined up. And so events that were going on lined up and everything else. And his hypothesis was that there was solar events going on that caused all the plagues in Egypt. And when you, like I said, and the biblical and the Dead Sea Scrolls, if you shift it by the timeline by 600 years, it totally lined up. And so that gives more credence. Of course, he was laughed out of he was clear back in the 40s and 50s, and he was laughed out of his profession. But then later, his books have been taken out of the fiction, been reprinted as fact. Pretty amazing.
I find it rather sad when just because somebody doesn't understand what another person is saying, they're laughed at.
I know it. It's so sad. This man was brilliant.
Has there ever been, in your opinion, comparative mythology that has proved something beyond a shadow of a doubt? And can you give us an example or two?
Well, I don't know about proving something beyond a shadow of a doubt, but when you keep seeing the same thing over and over and over again, maybe
Hmm.
different forms, but they're saying the same thing. I raise an eyebrow at it. So, say for instance, in all the native traditions, in all the shamanic traditions across the world, there's a sacred spiral.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the sacred spiral is found in cave dwellings here in the U.S. Okay, and the sacred spiral is also found in petroglyphs in um, Australia. Now, those continents weren't anywhere close to each other and had no way of communicating, is that we know of,
Right.
and yet the concept of the sacred spiral was very central to them, and to many other shamanic traditions. And what the sacred spiral stands for is evolution. So basically, we have seasons: winter, spring, summer, fall, right?
Yes.
But they're never exactly the same. Okay, they evolve. So it's more of a spiral than a circle, and that can be applied to the way humankind has been evolving, the way the concepts have been evolving. That
Hmm.
we have the same thing going round and round. The same seasons go round and round. The same astrological events go round and round, but they are moving forward. They're constantly evolving, and that's just one example. And that the sacred spiral is found just about in every shamanic tradition on the planet.
Who came up with the idea of the sacred spiral? Where did it evolve from originally?
Well, it's in petroglyphs that are so old.
Wow.
we, oh, so old. Yeah, so old. You know. So,
Hmm.
if beginning of humankind,
Right.
really. Cave dwellers.
So here we are in the year 2024, April. What have we learned from shamanism that you can point us in the right direction with?
Well, the thing that I find most important about
Mhm.
shamanism is how it uses the wisdom of the earth and the stars to teach us how to live our lives and to align with what works and the systems that are in place. It's the fact that we have stepped away from that has us in, quite frankly, what I think is such a mess with the global warming
Mhm.
and it goes on and on and on and on, because it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. And if you don't understand and work with nature, you're working against her. And it's going to damage nature, but it's going to damage us more, because who's bigger? Who's bigger in that equation? Well, I would have to say the earth is, the stars are.
I agree with you, Gwilda. As is done so often over the years, traditions kind of go by the wayside unless they're something really fantastic like Christmas and Easter and all the other holidays that we celebrate these days. But are the traditions of the First Nations and the shamanism being passed on to the younger members of the tribe, or are they just being foo-fooed by the younger generation? And are the younger generations taking on more of the modern day Western way of doing things?
Well, it's a mixed bag. Okay, it's really a mixed bag. And the way the First Nations and the Native Americans were treated
Mm.
has had a devastating effect on their society. It's made them dependent upon. Their way of life was absolutely trashed, and so the power,
Hmm.
the power that be, they see the power as being the Western way, the modern way. So a lot of them have, shunned or tried to move on from the
Hmm.
old way. But there's still a lot of reverence held for the
Yes,
elders and for the old ways. And there are still people, particularly in family lines, that are still being trained in the old ways. There's one family line in the Lakota that, they do a sacred walk at the time, at the this is the ceremony of the pipe. They do it at the sacred grounds where the Devil's Tower is in Black Hills.
Right.
Okay, that's why there's a big to do about the Black Hills being sacred ground. And they go out there and they do ceremony, and there's a family, each family represents a different place on that sacred ground that aligns with a stellar, with a solar, a star. what do I want to say? Constellation. There we go. And that family line has carried that ceremony for generations. And they go and they perform it every year on this pilgrimage that they do. And each family, each system is represented by a different family that's passed down these ceremonies, and they do the ceremony at that time. And they believe that that's, and this is also something that's very comparative mythology, and it's common in a lot of shamanic practices, is that by doing ceremony at that time, what it doesn't change what the earth's going to do, it doesn't change what the star's going to do, but it realigns the people with what the earth and stars are doing.
Like a reboot.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's your favorite ceremony to perform as a shaman?
Oh, I love naming and birth ceremonies. Those are my favorite because I get to hold the little babies, you know. No, naming ceremonies are really fun. Birth ceremonies are really fun because it's new. It's the generations continuing. It's life renewing itself. So I love those the best. Marriages are fun too.
Yeah. How is a shamanic marriage performed?
Well, I do them all the time, and they look just like a normal wedding. They look just like a normal wedding, except that hidden within the ceremony, the bride and groom and I have set up the 4 directions. We'll have a stone for each of the 4 directions set maybe just on the altar in the church or in the corners of the church that are set in the directions. So the sacred space is set up for the people to perform, to have the ceremony and to come together and wish the couple well. Mm-hmm. But then I have them take those stones home to their first new home and set them in the 4 corners of their house to hold that well-wishing of their family for their marriage.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that fun? Yeah.
Now, you say you do it in a church.
Mm-hmm.
I would have imagined that doing it as a shaman, you would do it outside, with nature.
I do a lot of them outside with nature, and I, of course, prefer that. But, some people want to be married in a church, but they want to have, a shamanic aspect to the wedding. And what it does is it really enhances the ceremony, and people become, the bride and groom and the parents become much more conscious of what's going on. I'll do water ceremonies, fire ceremonies, all different ceremonies depending on what the couple wants. Then they all enhance the binding that's being created, the intentional binding between the man and the woman.
Gwilda, it's that time when you and I must say so long for tonight. Let our listeners know how they can contact you one more time.
No problem. My favorite, of course, is my radio show, Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. And you can find it on xzbn.net as well. And then, of course, all my shamanic work and everything else that I do is on findyourpathhome.com.
Gwilda Wiyaka, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I look forward to working with you next Tuesday when we do 2 more shows.
That'll be fun. I always look forward to working with you.
And I've got to tell you, I love the guests that you've got on, and you're doing such a great job. So thanks very much.
Thank you. And, Exo Nation, watch your eyes.
Yes, please watch your eyes. Exo Nation, that my guest has been this hour, Gwilda Wiyaka, and as she said, her 2 websites are www.findyourpathhome.com and, you ready? www.missionevolution.org. I'll be back on the other side of this very short break as tonight's show continues with hour number 2 here in the X Zone on the X Zone Broadcast Network and coming to you from, got it? Your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streaming classic1220.ca.
Staring slowly across the sky, they said goodbye.